Angel investors are former entrepreneur and manager that want to give something back. We use it to say. So they have the experience, they have the money, obviously, but very useful in angel investing. The money are not so important in comparison to the type of service, for instance, or the type of network that they can give you. Indeed, we call the money of angel investors smart money, not only money.
When people think about startups, they usually picture founders, the late nights, the big ideas, and the funding rounds. But today, I want to flip that perspective. We are going to explore entrepreneurship through the eyes of someone who has spent years researching what really helps startups succeed. From business angels and venture studios to universities that nurture future founders. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of School to Startup, brought to you by Tracxn, a private market intelligence platform that's been supporting the global university ecosystem for over 12 years. Through our university partnerships, we work with institutions driving innovation and entrepreneurship, and this series highlights the academic leaders making that happen. I'm Harish, your host today. Joining us today is Professor Davide, lecturer in strategy and entrepreneurship at Norwich Business School, whose research focuses on entrepreneurial finance, impact investing, social entrepreneurship, and venture studios. Professor, it's wonderful to have you with us today.
No, it's completely my pleasure, and thank you so much for the invitation. It's a really pleasure to be here. I'm honored.
Great. So I would love to start with your own journey. You have actually began your academic path in law before moving into entrepreneurship research. That's a quite interesting transition. What inspired that shift?
Yeah, actually, at the very beginning of my path, I was a student in law, as you say. Actually, my first interest was constitutional law specifically, but after that, I decided to move on entrepreneurship because I created a student association, a university association that wanted to support social startups at the Polytechnic University of Turin with one of my best friends that is now Dr. Giuliano Sansone. And after I created also another association that aim to support social startup in another university of my city. And so I started to be very interested in entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, and especially the entrepreneurial finance part of the story and how to create and support new startups. And so I decided to start to do research on this field at the Polytechnic University of Turin. And so after my graduation law, I decided to move on a PhD in management engineering at the Department of Management Engineering at Polytechnic University of Turin. And during this path, I decided to focus on angel investing. And so exploring the ecosystem, specifically the Italian ecosystem, I decided to go deeper on some aspect of angel investing, and I decided also, thanks to some suggestion from my former supervisor, to go to UK, where the angel investing ecosystem is very important, and I started to do research with Professor Tiago Botello, that is here at the Norwich Business School, and now I'm a lecturer here, but I continue to work with a prominent scholar on angel investing, like Professor Isughetto and other. Well, yeah.
Amazing. So one area of your research that I find particularly fascinating is venture studio. So for those hearing that term for the first time, what exactly is a venture studio?
Yeah, it's very interesting because I think that venture studio are organizations that are pivotal for our ecosystem but are emerging. Venture Studio is an organization that creates in parallel, thanks to a structured process, several startups in parallel, as I mentioned before. So it's a new way to conceptualize entrepreneurship, because before we used to conceptualize entrepreneurship as an individual path in which the founder is usually an individual that decided to create we use it to say in literature is a sort of all-rounder. But with a venture studio, the perspective is totally different. It's an organization with entrepreneurial experience, with human capital, that know how to create startups and that create several startups in parallel. So it's a completely different perspective. And I started to do research on this because I mapped the Italian ecosystem and I found one of them that was in Turin, my home city. And so I started to go deeper. And now specifically, I'm working on at least a couple of papers on that. And one is an R&R in Technovation. It is a famous journal in innovation.
Interesting. So for someone who is new to fundraising, how is working with an angel investor different from raising money from a venture capital firm or through venture studios?
Yeah, for angel investing perspective, the criteria are very different usually because angel investors are different. We are talking about angel investing. Angel investors are former entrepreneur and manager that want to give something back. We use it to say, so they have the experience, they have the money, obviously, but very useful in angel investing. The money are not so important in comparison to the type of service, for instance, or the type of network that they can give you. Indeed, we call the money of angel investors smart money, not only money, but also the criteria are totally different. Because they want to see a team in which they can invest and with who they can collaborate. That is very different. It's another story because they want to support you, but in a different way in comparison to other, for instance, to a VC or to other organization. If we talk about Venture Studio is a co-founder. Is a founder like exactly you if you want to be an entrepreneur, and so their support is similar to that of other co-founder. They create with you, so they can support you to give, and they can give you their social capital in some way, so they can give you to access to other investor. And it's very interesting, like a business angel, for instance. And it's very interesting that also in literature, we found that if you obtain money from an angel investor or an angel investor group, it's easier that you obtain a future round from a VC, for instance. This is interesting, but it's quite obvious if you think the type of support that they give you, they can avoid to you to make some mistake that are very common, as you know, in an entrepreneurial path. And so they are a pivotal player that can support you in giving money, 100%, but also and especially service and human capital.
Very well said. So in your experience, do investors invest more in ideas or in people?
In my experience, it depends on the type of investor. One rule that I also try to suggest to startup or to my student is the fact that you have to decide and you have to choose the proper investor. If we are talking about angel investing, we are talking about people that want to invest in people. If you ask to an angel investor which criteria they look for, an angel investor will say people, and people. They look to you, not only to your idea better, because at the end of the day, they are looking for people that are able to make a pivot, to change the idea. As we know, and there are a lot of examples, entrepreneurs start with an idea, but after they needed to change the idea very often. Angel investors looking for people that are able to make this pivot. And so very often people are more important than the idea. Okay, also the idea needed to be validated, needed to structure, that is fundamental. But behind that structure, we needed to identify people.
Interesting. And another important area your work is impact investing, right? So, has the definition of a successful startup changed over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. If I think when I started to do research, especially when I also collaborate and obviously did research with some angel group, etc., was very interesting because at the very beginning, the attention to impact investing was not to social impact of the startup was not so high. But now, also in an elevator pitch, also a pitch of 3 minutes, you find at least one slide dedicated to impact. So this is a piece of evidence that suggests of the change of the type of attention that a startup needed to have today. And for instance, in one of my last publication, me and my co-author, we theorized that in agreement to the imprinting theory, so a theory that explained that we are conditioned by the system in which we are created. It's very interesting that we theorize that the startup created in the last few years are impacted by the desire, the willingness of our ecosystem to have an impact, not only an economic impact, but also a social environmental impact. This is very interesting. And they, in agreement to the imprinting theory, they will continue to have these characteristics. So this attention to the impact for all their life. So we are switching from the idea that a startup needed to be only an economic player, also to actually to a player that need also to consider the ecosystem. Okay, there are some obviously global movement that can represent a sort of barrier to this social impact, but we need to consider also what the people want. For instance, there was an European report of last year that showed that more than 90% of people in Europe want to see an impact on the enterprise, on the corporate, on the economic player of our society. This is very interesting. And this is actually what we can observe in impact investing literature, but also in a social entrepreneurship literature.
Interesting. So zooming out a bit, one thing I really enjoy about this series is understanding how universities, shape entrepreneurs long before they build companies, right? So let's talk about education. Some people say entrepreneurs are born, others say they are made. So where do you stand?
But actually, when we talk about entrepreneurship, first of all, we talk about a set of skills that is fundamental for every career. So also, what I also try to teach to my students is the fact that also if they don't want to be entrepreneur, they need to be entrepreneur of themselves in some way. Think about the capacity of public speaking, or think about to the capacity to organize and design some activity, project management, etc., etc. Actually, in my opinion, obviously there are some people that have a sort of talent to regarding to entrepreneurship, maybe because they have one or two of these skills that are fundamental, like the capacity to do a pitch that is better than that of our colleagues. But in my opinion, being an entrepreneur is more a desire that you can cultivate in some way, that you can in which you can invest, like for instance attending a business school and course in a business school, or if you are in another path of your, in another moment of your path, attending an MBA, for instance. And in this way you can deliver these entrepreneurial skills, and also you can allow to the entrepreneur within you to flourish in some way, and also create a new opportunity for you, but also for the society. And so, in my opinion, is a sort of mix of the two elements. But definitely is something that in which you can invest, and if you invest, you can gain a lot of opportunity and a lot of benefit for your life, for every career that you want to start.
Amazing. And how's your university shaping that?
But in my opinion, in NBS, Norwich Business School, we are a very. I'm proud of what we are doing, because at the end of the day we have the different level of entrepreneurial model. We have an undergraduate model of entrepreneurship, for instance, in which I'm also involved. We have different actually entrepreneurial models, and we have also a master level, so a PG, postgraduate, and also MBA. In every moment of our path, of our different path, you can benefit a lot of experience of from international academics, but also from an international court, in which you can learn more about what happened in the other part of the world, or also start to think and also play as an entrepreneur. Indeed, what, for instance, I do in my modules, in which I'm module organizer, or in which I'm involved, I try to build an environment in which there is the opportunity to learn by doing. So, in which you have the opportunity to have the experience, the entrepreneurial experience, in a safe environment, especially at the beginning when we talk, when we operate with undergraduate. And another element that is very important in MBS, but in my model especially, is the fact that we wanted to build also critical thinking. So we try to put the student in a condition in which they can discuss, in which they can reflect, in which they can develop the so-called metacognition, so reflecting on how they reflect. So, for instance, my approach very often is that at the beginning you have some sections in which they learn the base of entrepreneurship. So, which are the player, for instance, how they can operate with them and how they can collaborate with them. But after, they have to start to put themselves in a condition in which they needed to have experience of uncertainty of entrepreneurship. So, for instance, I organize some Dragon Den style or Shark Tank style opportunity in which they needed to do a pitch session in front of experts of angel investing that or of pitch that are part of my university. And then they have to reflect about their experience, but also reflect on how they learn and how they create and decide during that experience, in order to consolidate and corroborate what they are learning. And this gives them the opportunity to be ready when they need to face the actual and real uncertainty that they need to face in an ecosystem. But it's very interesting. But just to summarize, my university tried to, at the beginning, try to give you the entrepreneurial learning. After, we can say that support you in create your idea, in order to pass from curiosity to the real action, and finally to consolidate or have a different perspective. Especially in MBA, you have a different perspective on your path, on your career, and how to use your entrepreneurial skills in order to manage better your career and develop more.
Amazing. I'm sure you have met founders and student founders who are, incredibly passionate, but their business idea, simply isn't practical. So, how do you handle those conversations?
Yeah, thank you for your question, because it's very interesting. Very often, as you mentioned, you have a student especially in my module, because it's about entrepreneurship or strategy, in which passionate student, they try to develop some idea. They wanted to develop some idea. This is very interesting. And what I try to do is to teach them how to set up everything and how to understand how to pass from the passion to the structure. This is very important and something that I try to put in my teaching. And what is very interesting also is the fact that I try to give them an idea about the difficulties and challenges that they needed to face during their entrepreneurial path. And what is very interesting also is the fact that I try to teach them also how they needed to face and accept the fail. I mean, when you have to work with an entrepreneurship, with uncertainty, you need to be ready to face fail. Failing is part of the game, and so they have to understand this element.
Amazing. And before we wrap up, if you could leave every aspiring entrepreneur and student who are watching today with just one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, if I have to give a suggestion, a piece of advice to a student today, is the fact that they need to understand how they can create their startup properly. I mean, as I mentioned before, they need to pass from what is very common, the passion, the implication to be an entrepreneur, to which structure they have to follow and which player they need to identify that they can support their idea. This is something that also fundamental for their entire life as entrepreneur. I mean, very often what happens is the fact that they don't select the proper, especially at the beginning, since the lack of experience, very often the proper supporter for their experience. This is a problem. This is something that they needed to face better. And I think that a module in entrepreneurship or similar, or they can give them the opportunity to think about that. And another piece that is very fundamental is to start the network. They needed to develop their network properly that from the beginning, because as I mentioned many times to my students, for instance, at the beginning, during the university path, they have colleagues. After, maybe they have a co-founder, or I don't know, in my case, a lawyer, or an advisor, a supporter. So this is very fundamental for their experience.
Perfect. And finally, where can our audience learn more about your research and keep up with your latest work?
Yeah, to learn about my research, there are two channels that are fundamental. One is the profile, obviously, of my university that is on the website of MBS, Norwich Business School, or on Google Scholar, or on my LinkedIn, actually, as well, where I try to support my path and where I try to push and commercialize in some way, to push and promote better my idea.
Amazing. All the links will be available in the comment section.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So if today's conversation taught us one thing, it's that successful entrepreneurship is about much more than a great idea. It's about developing the right mindset, learning from the experienced mentors, and growing within a strong entrepreneurial ecosystem. Professor Davide, thank you so much for being part of School to Startup. It was a pleasure having you with us and learning from your insights.
Cheers, and it was completely my pleasure. And thank you for this brilliant event and initiative, because I think that is very important.
Thank you very much. And to everyone watching, thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to our channel, and click the bell icon so you never miss our future conversation. We'll see you in the next episode.